Welcome to Podcast on Wheels, powered by Power Loops. Today, we have one of my new best friends.
That's right, brother.
The Executive Creative Officer. He does everything from branding. This man has worked in Vegas. He's worked in Nashville. He's from LA. His family's from the Philippines. Mm-hmm. This guy is Mr. John Mediana. Thank you for joining us today,
Thanks
brother.
So much for having me in the, what do you call this thing?
It was a toy hauler.
Toy hauler.
Yeah.
Converted to Podcast on Wheels, baby.
That's it.
Thanks so much for having me, bro.
That's it. John, I first saw you on a podcast and I see it and I'm like, who's the happy guy? Who's the happy guy? There's just energy and just fun. So, start us where you want to, but take us back. Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, man. So I grew up, like you said, born and raised in LA. I come from a Filipino family. So my dad, he served in Vietnam, and then he came to America, met my mom, and then and I was adopted. So they're a lot older than me. Obviously, if you're in Vietnam, my dad's turning 87 in July. Okay. So I kind of grew up a different type of millennial. I was born in the 1980s. Okay. So I know I look like I'm just fresh out of college. Yeah. I can do an internship here. But I grew up in the 80s and I adopted technology and I adopted creativity because I was born and raised in LA. And when all my other cousins were like, I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to be a this, I'm going to be that, I'm going to be like, I don't want to do any of that. Mm-hmm. I don't trust myself with anybody. Seeing blood, I'll probably pass out, So I was either going to be a mailman or a male nurse. Okay. Those are my two options. As a Filipino. And if y'all don't understand it, go type in Filipino nurse and you'll just see a bunch of guys that look like me in scrubs. Okay. You know what I mean? But I grew up in California and LA. So all my friends, they were skateboarders. I was very intrigued with the music scene, punk rock, hip hop, and skateboarding is what raised me. So I kind of felt like, man, I wanted to pursue that. And being adopted, I struggled a lot with identity and value and purpose and mission. I felt like I was abandoned by my parents. And I had these wonderful, loving parents, by the way. I grew up in church and all that stuff. And they taught me how to value life and really how to pour in to be a contributor in society. You know what I mean? So they taught me how to work hard. My dad was like, if you don't work, you don't eat, son. And I was like, Dad, I'm 6 years old, bro. What do you mean? So I kind of grew up with that attitude and mentality of you just work hard and it will pay off, right? So I was like, okay, being introduced to skateboarding and music and all this stuff and the adoption of creativity and the internet boomed. So I fell into branding and marketing by accident through MySpace. I don't know if y'all remember MySpace.
Oh yeah.
Right. So Tom was my best friend, right? I know he's everybody's friend, but he was my best friend. Right. So I learned a lot from Tom. He actually taught me how to code MySpace pages. He actually taught me he didn't actually tell me, but he gave me an opportunity. Right. And this is what I want everybody to understand. There's an opportunity, right, to learn and grow and accomplish and solve problems and stuff. So what MySpace afforded me was a safe place to fail for fun, because none of that stuff, monetizing and making money off the internet, wasn't anything back then. Right. It was just all right, well, there's this new kid on the block called MySpace and internet. Then we had, AIM and then YouTube in 2005, 2006. Facebook came on the scene and I was fascinated because I could take the photos and videos that I took of my friends skateboarding, the bands that I was a part of, and I could put it in a place where it could live and look amazing and people could watch it and they could be like, yo, this is dope, right? So I got a response right away because the internet was so involved in this. So I really piqued my curiosity, you know what I mean? So I started, I hadn't mentioned my dad was from Vietnam. And when he came to America, he had those tourists that have a fanny pack and they're taking photos everywhere. He had that mentality, right? Okay. He came to America with this American dream. I'm going to serve this country and I'm going to chase after this American dream where anything is possible because this is the freest country, on the planet, right? This is the most powerful country on the planet. And he served the country. And every time, wherever it was, where I grew up in our home, there's always a camera involved. There was always a Kodak film camera where we had to go to the 1 hour film, the next day film store, right? And I was so fascinated because he taught me that documenting is crucial when you're living this life. Document always, right? He came from a different country, so he understood that, wow, this is a once in a lifetime experience. I'm gonna just take photos and all this stuff. So I grew in the photography world, and then he introduced me to video cameras, the JVC, you know, that big old, you know, Back to the Future looking, Michael J. Fox looking, you know, VHS. Right. And I was like, what is this? You know, so I started using those cameras to film my friends skateboarding and doing music. And I was like, wow, this is interesting. This is before the internet, right? The 90s. Mm-hmm. And then when the internet came, I was like, oh, I could translate this to digital. I could translate this, you know, and make it happen and put it online. I could actually build out MySpace pages. And I did that for my own local band, my band. And I was like, I just need to get more shows. I need to sell more tickets. I need to sell more merchandise. How am I going to do that? I'm a designer on MySpace page.
Wow.
And then when I did that, other local bands started saying, can you do that for me? And I was like, yeah, $200. Right? I was like 14 years old, crushing $200 a page. And then more MySpace pages, more local bands. They're like, I need band photography. I need a music video. I started doing that. And I was like, yo, can I do this? Like, you know, do I now have a route instead of becoming a nurse or a mailman? Can creativity actually pay my bills? So when I graduated high school with a 1.8, by the way, I was just a troubled high schooler, didn't pay attention. I went to film school. In Santa Monica for 6 years, 4 different campuses, but I started in Santa Monica and I was top of the class, man. Like I was just, cause I love creativity. I love the arts. And it took 6 years. It was a 2-year program. It took 6 years because I was involved in the industry. I was like, I'm not learning fast enough in school. Let me go put my hands in the trenches, right? So I was doing internship programs. I was doing PA work. You know, I started working with Kodak, with Disney, with all this stuff when I was just, before I was 20.
Really?
Yeah, man. And I learned because I was just hands-on. And that was the best way for me to learn. You know, so I got hands-on, moved flash forward. In my 20s, I owned companies because of this skill, this high demand skill of give me a camera and a laptop and internet connection and I'll blow your brand up, right? That was the way it was because I'm like, dude, give me a camera. Give me internet connection. I could transform your website. I could transform your social media page. I could convert that because I know from a business standpoint that it takes money to put in and invest and get that return back. Because my dad, he got fired from his job when I was 9, and he was into machine work and stuff. So he did like saws and carbide tools. He would sharpen them. And when he got fired from his job, he got fired for no reason, only because just they didn't like him. So my dad came home and he was like, son, I know you're 9 years old, but let this resonate with you. I don't care where you go to college. I don't care if you become a doctor or whatever. Whatever you choose in life, I'm going to support you. But let me just tell you this. Grow up and own something. If you own something, we live in the freest country, son. We live in the freest country. If you don't own something, you won't take advantage of the opportunities here. And that's stuff. I was 9 years old. And I was like, I'm going to own creativity. I'm going to own content creation. I'm going to help people tell their story better and everywhere. Right. And I stuck out throughout my whole 20s. That's all I did. Own companies. I was a CMO of companies, was a creative director and strategist for a lot of companies, a lot of brands, Capitol Records, Entertainment, came to me and was like, I want you to direct our music videos. Wow. I want you to do all this stuff. And I just learned. And I wasn't like, oh, look at me. I was in a position to fail often and always and test everything. I wanted to be like, well, why can't we do it? Why can't we do it? And what you talked about is the joy that I got. That's from my dad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I grew up in church.
Yeah.
And he said, son, do not take any breath for granted. Like God designed you and gave you purpose. Yeah. So if you are not joyful, he is your joy. And you will, if you need joy, go to God and he will fill that joy. And let me tell you, my dad, he's turning 87. He looks like he's in his 60s. And I asked him, I was like, Dad, how do you look so young, man? He's like, I got the joy of the Lord in my heart. You know that?
Yeah.
Got the joy
down in my heart. Yeah. I know the tune.
That's it. So that joy that you feel, that energy that you feel is because, man, I was saved by grace and grace alone. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I love Jesus. So that's it.
I love it. And like every time I've seen you and then getting to be around you today, you know, it's not only one thing that I said on the way here as we were bringing the studio up. I said the coolest thing, like I've been around Hall of Fame baseball players and I've been around some other cool things and different things from past things. I won't go into it here, but a lot of times you would see somebody in front of the camera, and then when you meet them, you're like, oh man, and
disappointment.
In the room that we were in earlier today, as you look around, it's like, no, that's the same dude.
Yeah.
That's the same dude. And I've been to some of the guys' houses, and I've met their wives, and I've met their kids, and I'm like, they're the same dude all day. Yeah. And it's that joy. It's that, you know. So, but I have to say, one of the shows I heard you on, this jumped out to me. You had something to do with a Vegas slogan and something there. So tell us that story, because I love that story.
Yeah, man. Thanks for bringing that up, man. And I think to your point, when the joy, there's some sort of conviction.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when you can meet someone and they're the same person online as they are in person, they hold a conviction. They're like, this is just me on the daily. You know what I mean? I'm the same person. I'm not putting on a persona or a show, right? I just am who I am. And if I live tied to truth, I never have to remember a lie. You know what I mean? I don't got to remember what I'm trying to, persona I'm trying to be today. Or if I'm just me, I'm just me, right? So Vegas, let me tell you about Vegas. So I got married at 30 and I exited 3 companies. I had 5 companies in my 20s. The first one I failed hard. I was 20 years old and I owned my own warehouse. It was 1,500 square foot and it had my name in the front. And I was like, oh, I'm a big shot now, baby. I'm a big shot now. My ego was so big when it comes to creativity. And then I didn't know about, taxes and all this stuff, business stuff. I was like I was a glorified creative. And then I was like, oh my gosh, we got clients. Like what? I just thought I wanted to do what I love to do. It was a hard lesson in business, and I failed at that. I shut it down in the first year and went broke. But then 12 months after that was when the first time I made my first 6 figures as a creative. And I called my mom. I was like, I made it, baby. I made it, mommy. We're going to get you a house. We're going to, So, but that's what it felt like.
Exactly. Right.
You know what I mean? And then what happened was I learned how to manufacture attention and awareness and then tie that to purpose and impact. I started working with a lot of celebrities and a lot of CEOs because they knew, and this was before personal branding was personal branding. They knew that they're the ones getting the attention and bringing that back to their companies. So they want to leverage YouTube and social media. So fast forward, I was, when I got married, we were living in Long Beach, and then I had some friends because I was living in Vegas for a little bit. When I said 4 campuses, Vegas was one of the campuses, art schools that I went to. In that season, in 2013, I had met a friend named Sean Cannell. And he was a communications director for a local church. And then we just found each other. And I was like, man, I went to a film school, blah, blah, blah. I do YouTube. And he's like, I do YouTube too. Let's just hang out. We built a great, strong relationship. Then I met my friend Omar and all these people. Like, we just found each other and we're just like, let's just do this YouTube. And that started to kind of spiral into something really unique that, when you're on the same page and you're like, I believe in content, I believe in YouTube, nobody else is really doing it, word gets around. So when we were living in Long Beach, I get a phone call from some friends in Vegas and they're like, hey, do you know that campaign, What Happens in Vegas Stays in Vegas? I was like, the biggest campaign on planet Earth? Yeah. They're like, yeah. So the agency that started that is actually having an open position for a creative director, like a creative strategist. And they're like, John, we've been putting a lot of people that work there has been talking about, this is for you. And I'm like, what are you talking about? This is for me. And they're like, they've been doing all kinds of interviews, bro. Like hundreds of people want this job, but I think it belongs to you. And I was like, okay, well, how does one even get to that level of getting in front of this agency? They're like, well, apply here. And then, people that are in the circle, they'll put in their name.
Step into the future with Power Loops, the king of off-grid power, where our proprietary system is changing the game of energy. This isn't just power, it's freedom. The freedom to live, work, and play anywhere, powered by our innovative technology that taps into the Earth's natural energy. Our system is designed for efficiency, durability, and sustainability, ensuring that you have reliable power 365 days a year without harming the planet. Whether you're traveling in the RV, the remote wilderness, or just opting out of traditional power grids, Power Loops provides the ultimate solution. Join us in leading the charge towards a cleaner, greener, and more empowered world. Power Loops, the king of off-grid energy.
So I think I applied and like instantly, I think it was like 24 hours. I get a phone call saying, hey, we want to bring you out to Vegas to kind of like do an interview. I was like, okay. So like me and my wife went out there. They like wine and dine and showed us around and they put an offer on the table like, hey, so you're our guy, you know, I think you're our guy, but you have like 6 more interviews to do. It's kind of like the hardest part of getting in. It was like getting into harder than getting into like Harvard or Yale, man. Sure. It was insane. I had to do like a FBI background check. And I was like, why?
And you passed, right?
Yeah,
okay.
man. Okay. Yeah, I did a piss in the cup, everything, you know? So like the idea, like at the end of the day, God made a way and it was a setup. So I was like, so they made me an offer and I was like, oh, I'm moving. 2 weeks later, I was in Vegas.
Okay.
You know, so we moved from Long Beach to Vegas in 2018. And my job was as a content creator was really taking on the social media aspect of it. The Instagram, Vegas verified Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. And I worked with a team. So it doesn't just take one person, which is what everybody think is, but it's a myth. It takes a department, multiple departments from executive departments all the way down to producing and project management and also client approvals, all that stuff when you're working with millions and millions of dollars every single month out of this Vegas. And it taught me something. I was like, oh my gosh, this was what I was missing. It was understanding how everything flowed, the departments and like the people that are involved and how things get moved up to the chain. And then we had this great opportunity because I had these ideas and I looked at Vegas's Instagram and I looked at Vegas and, you know, me, I can't shut my mouth. So I was like, you know, we could do this better. You know, because I love, man, if you're here on earth and you got a breath, you got to pursue excellence. Excellence means like, if you could do it better, right? Why stick to mediocre, like Coach said today, right?
Yeah.
You want to be great? Well, this ain't the mediocre factory.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like the idea was like, hey, you know, we could do this better because everything Vegas has been showing was just like pictures of Bellagio and Paris. And I was just like, one thing that I've learned in my journey and why God brought me up to here was like, you need a persona. You need something that people are sticking around for. You need people to be engaged, and that's just not happening. So what can we do? So they came to me and they're like, well, John, what's your ideas? And I was like, well, what if we treated Vegas's Instagram or all the channels like a network? Like what if it had shows? You know what I mean? Like, what if it had like how to Vegas over the weekend, how to do Vegas under budget, how to do Vegas on a girl's trip, how to do, right? And I was like, what if we had a show called Latest of Vegas and like brand around it? So like, what if we showcase the latest restaurants, the latest, you know, shows, the latest things that are happening, you know? And then what if we did multiple of these? I created these things called content buckets. So it's just like these content ideas that can have its own branding and have its lifetime value, and it's measurable. There's data that's backed up because you can say, hey, we're going to do a 6-week campaign around this bucket. Let's look at the numbers and get it back. And how did it help our brand? So then they implemented that, took it from 157,000 to over 800,000 followers on social media within a short amount of time. And then in 2020, I think 2019, 2020, we're in the pitch for rebranding the city of Las Vegas as the 20th anniversary of that brand. Mm-hmm. So we had a ton of pitches, like a lot of creative directors in there. So I went to my creative director, my boss, and I was like, yo, I got these 3 ideas. You know, let's put them all together. In fact, I don't want to just put it together. What if we just demonstrated? Mm-hmm. So I took my crew within 24 hours, started building stuff just so they could see things visually and present. Because I love pitching, man. Like I was like, how do we just blow these people's minds? And funny enough, out of the 3 pitches, like they went with a solid pitch that we did. And then we got to rebrand the whole entire city. We spent millions, like we did a Super Bowl commercial. We did all kinds of stuff. It came from this place of like, can we just dream and ideate? But not only ideate, can we execute and show you what it could look like? If I could show you what it could look like, you'll have a better idea and you have more buy-in. So when we first pitched the campaign, when they first pitched it in 2001, What Happens in Vegas Stays in Vegas, I think about less than, I think like 30% of the actual Vegas properties, they didn't like it because you got Circus, which they're trying to go more family friendly. Mm-hmm. So you got these people that are like, it just feels too provocative. Like, well, I don't want us to, even though it's Vegas, it's like adult, you know, like kind of thing, but they didn't want to be painted that way. So when we presented one word change, we just shifted one word from stays to only. Every single property bought in. They were like 100%. This has never been done. 100% of the properties were like, we love it, run it. So we pumped millions into it, man. And then 2020, when we launched it, that Sunday. It was a Sunday. We're about to go live. I was in the, they call it the command center. So I was at Cosmo. We had a command center there, and we're about to go live, turn the whole city to the branding. This branding, by the way, the purples and whatnot. Yeah. We're going to light it up. And then we were watching the news, and what happened on the news in 2020, it was right before the pandemic, but Kobe Bryant just passed away.
Yeah.
Kobe Bryant. That day that we were supposed to do the brand. And then we were in the command center, and I'm with the executive team, and we're like making all these calls, and they're like, what do we do? What do we do? Do we go live, or do we pay homage to, like, what do we do? And we have to call it. We're like, no, guys, let's shut it down. Let's get our designers, and let's pay homage to Kobe, like, because they're also our neighbors, traveling distance, and like we got so much love. And I was like, thank God, because I'm from LA. I love Kobe. I love, So we flipped it in that moment. We pivoted hard. Within 2 hours, we got new headlines, new everything. Did it. It was fast, and it was on the news everywhere saying Vegas pays respect to Kobe. And that in itself was like a moment where I was just like, wow, this is leadership. This is leadership. And then later on, we did the rebrand. We launched it. It was massively successful. I got the receipts for that. You know what I mean? And we worked with a lot of people, and it was successful. And then a couple months later, guess what? Back to pivoting.
Yeah.
The city shut down March 17th, the day my first son was born.
Okay.
Right? We were supposed to have a home birth. 36 hours later, we're like, we probably should go to the hospital. I'm in the hospital. I'm the last dad in the hospital before they changed the policy of no dads could be there.
Okay.
Right? I remember that day. And then what happened was, my firstborn was a week early, so I knew it was God.
Yeah,
I knew it had to be. His hand was on everything, you know. So I did my paternity leave. I felt like everybody quarantined the first 6 weeks with us. I didn't even think anything of it. And then when I got back to work, I was like, "This is a different world, man. I can't do this no more. I'm working 90 hours in the same house with my family, and I only see them at dinner. I can't do this." So I left that agency. I took everything I learned from building out these campaigns and departments, and it added to my tool belt from the MySpace days all the way up until doing a massively successful rebrand. It's almost like the epitome of branding. You know, can you brand a whole freaking city of Las Vegas? Let's do it. And then I started this company called Executive Brand Growth because I recognize it's about the people, not just the brand. It's about serving CEOs and equipping them with the vision and the know-how and the amplification of their brand that's going to actually move needles for their companies. So we created Executive Brand Growth, and now we're here a couple of years in, and we're just excited to be alive, man. That's it.
Well, that to say that's it's an understatement, right? I mean, that's it. But the thing that I've absorbed from what you said here is that the common theme that you've been able to bring everywhere you've been is just the mentality of I can figure this out. And, you mentioned your mom earlier before the show, and you're talking about the family and how they have, if I was told at 6 years old, you don't get to eat unless you're working. And then at 9, you need to own, you got some good lessons there early.
I did, man. I really did.
So now that you're officially moved to Nashville for a few years, right?
Yeah.
And the people that I've seen that you're working with, I'm seeing how their brands are changing and adjusting. And it's like, oh, man, I've been following you for 3 or 4 years. There's a little
shift.
It is. And it's not major. Their content, their verbiage is still the same. Their message is still the same, right? But if somebody wanted to work with you, I know there's a couple different options. You have a team. They could come to you. You can go to them. How would that work if somebody's like, hey, I want some of that?
Yeah. No, first of all, I appreciate even noticing. Not a lot of people can notice the shift because when you're in it, it's just like working out, if you're trying to lose weight or you're trying to, you're grinding every day and you're seeing the scale and you're like, I don't see any changes. And then you could back up and you're like, dang, from month to month, I'm like, dang, look at my muscles. You know what I mean?
Right.
So when you mentioned that, I wanted to go back to that a little bit because when you mention you see a shift or a change, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
All right. I had someone tell me that a long time ago. I'm like, man, I'm going to take that. You don't know what you don't know. But once you see it done, right? So have you watched the movie Maverick? Right, one lesson in Maverick, right? All of the young Mavericks, all the pilots are like, I can't do that. And what happens? Tom Cruise is like, let me show you.
Yeah.
Once he got in the plane and once he did it and said it could be done, all of them started following through.
Right.
All of them started learning. All of them said, oh, it could be done. All right. So when you get a guy like me that's been spending over 20 years in creativity, building brands from 0 to millions and learning from those things, working with the best brands, working with the best, influential people on the planet, you can't help but to elevate and be like, oh, I didn't see it like that. Now you're challenging my thought process. You're challenging me in such a way where I got to start thinking not only content, but quality of message, quality of physical quality, like the 4K, the lighting, the producing, the production, quality of how we scale and volume. Those things take a lot of experience. And for some people where they start is like, well, I can pick up a camera and just shoot and,
I'm going to interrupt you right here and tell you when we built this, I said, hey, we got some cameras, we got some mics, we got some cool lights. 3, 2, 1, here we go. And I'm like, well, where's the show? We have to edit. We have to adjust. We have to clip here. We have to,
It takes a lot of work.
I didn't know how to put my name on the thing. I didn't, how do we, and so that's common knowledge to a guy like you.
Yeah.
And you're
Absolutely.
like, oh, come on, Brian, you didn't know that. You went out and did all this.
Yeah.
But no, a lot of people go there, right?
And, I come from a place of like, if people don't know what they don't know, I have a lot of grace because they didn't put the 20 years in.
Right.
Right. So like when you come to me and you talk to me, you're not going to feel stupid. Right. I want to meet you at the level of like, hey, let's see where you're at. Like, what's your understanding of it? And let's reverse engineer. You know what I mean? And I learned this because of Jesus.
Yeah.
Jesus didn't say like, I'm God and you're dumb. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like repent. Like
right.
He actually
should to some people though.
Yeah, he should have been. if we could rewrite some of those stories in the Gospels, you know what I mean? And I'm like, he had so much grace and so much love.
Yeah.
I just learned how to love people through the eyes of Jesus.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you got to meet people where they're at. You know what I mean? If you're going to build know, like, trustability and you're going to build something, and it says in the Bible of like doing things so well that people are attracted to that.
Yes.
Right. So like if you do the thing well, people see the excellence in that and you attribute that because of your relationship with Jesus. You know what I mean? It's like, man, Jesus loved me well. So it's not me boasting about how much I love him and how excellent I am. And like, it's about me knowing that he loved me first and he was generous and gracious with me as a good father. Right. Right. Yeah. And I want to do the same for clients and people where I'm like, hey, I know this is what you probably know, but here's another way to think about it. And here's some structure that you can take around it. And let me tell you, we're a relationship first company because I'm a relationship first person, right? So money to me and wealth is the reward, right? Not the goal.
Yeah.
Money to me is the reward of because you built and established such a value for someone that they're willing to make an exchange. They said, what your knowledge is and your skill set means more to me than this dollar. Yeah. That's what it means, right? And if I could do that over and over and over again, I could, man. And like, that's just what I learned. So when people come to us, right, they're either like, hey, what's it like to work with you? Right? Do you do coach? Do you this? And I'm like, man, if you want to work with us, obviously like my thing is like, what are you trying to build? What's your outcomes? Because everybody that runs a business or everybody, some people want to be keynote speakers and authors. They want to travel and do their thought leadership. Some people are like, dude, I'm just trying to make my business survive. Like, I'm just trying to pay my bills. Some people are like, I got a banging business. It's $5 million, every year. I need to take it to 10. Right. And this is the only thing stopping me, my personal brand. So really, whenever people come to me, I always like to do an audit. Like, where are you? What are you trying to achieve? What's your goals? And then use content as a vehicle, as a tool that we could pull out and be like, I got this tool. It's like a Swiss Army knife of problem solving, right? So they come to me with their problem saying, hey, this is the visible symptom, right, that I feel right now. I need more sales. I need this. And I go in there, I'm like, that's your visible symptom, but the root cause is because you're not daily publishing or you're not daily consistent or you have no creative muscle. You have no place to create content on a daily basis. And people need to hear you, see you multiple times. It's called the mere exposure effect or the familiarity effect. If you're familiar with that, it's the idea of the more times people see you, the more people get comfortable with you. So when you watch my stuff and we hang out in person, this is the mere exposure effect. I'm like, dang, he's a real person. He's really the way he is.
Yeah.
That's the mere exposure effect. It's almost like we've been hanging out for years. You know what I mean? And there's no time that has passed. And this relationship is just like a true friendship because it's like, I've been hanging out with you and you don't even know it.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's the mere exposure effect. So some people, business owners, don't have that mechanism in their business of like, well, that seems time consuming. It's like, all right, so you're dealing with time. What if we batch content? What does batch content mean? What if we spent one day with you and just got a ton of content that we could repurpose and put online? And they're like, that sounds amazing, but who's going to do that? My team, your team? I'm like, dude, if you have a team, and this is where the fractional CCO, which is Chief Creative, comes out of me. I'm like, hey, we could coach your team on how to do it. If you have a sales team or a marketing team or, a social media team, if you don't have that, you could borrow ours because we built a company with over 16 creatives in-house. Yeah. You know what I mean? That is leveled up. They've adopted my mentality when it comes to branding and marketing. You know what I mean? They're a representation of who I am because I spent proximity with my team. I love my team and they're great. Shout out to my team, by the way. Yeah. Executive brand growth team, man. I see you. Yeah, man.
And where would we be without our team, right? I mean, just one guy can't do it. But, we've touched on it a little bit, but, I've got two boys. Yeah. You've got two boys. Yeah. So what's the dad, John Mediana? Tell us a little bit about that. Man, I want to hear a little bit about that.
Here's the thing. And you can even ask my wife this, but even before we were married, man, I've had dreams to be a dad. I had dreams to be a dad because I had a good dad, right? I had dreams to be a dad because a good dad demonstrated to me what a good dad was like. And then when I gave my life to Jesus at 18, I knew what a good father looked like. And then I was like, I can't experience my relationship with God without being a dad because I don't know what it's like to sacrifice or commit to be responsible for another human being. Right. Then I was blessed to have two of them, two boys. So like my journey was like, and if you've known me for many years, you're like, dude, John just always wanted to be a dad. Always wanted to be a dad. I wanted to be a dad because I wanted to experience God's love. That he has. And when those boys came into this world, man, my heart swelled 2 times bigger. You know what I mean? And you're like, how can I love this boy even more? Yeah. And then you have another one, you're like, oh, my heart just got bigger. Yeah. Because you're just thinking about ROI. You're thinking about, I don't have much time. I don't got this. Like, how do I add more? But it was a multiplier. My heart swelled. Yeah. And I'm like, I didn't know I had the capacity to love these kids the way I do. And I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful. Shout out to my wife, because she's the one really that made it all out physically. Yeah. Yeah. So every time we celebrate birthdays, I can't help but to get some roses for my wife because it's her day. Yeah. It was her that did the work. They did nothing. Yeah. Boys, you did nothing, right? To come into the world. Your mama did it all. Yeah. But I'm a family man. I'm a legacy guy. Yeah. I teach my kids not generational wealth because when you think of generational wealth, you think of like I'm missing something. Like it's a lack mentality of like I'm not wealthy yet, but when I get wealth, then I'm gonna do something. Yeah. I teach my boys, even though they're 2 and 4, I'm like generational generosity. Whatever you have today, you just be generous and give. And then this is what I tell my boys. I'm like, put out your hands. And they're like, okay, daddy, put out my hands. And I say, you have everything you need. You can't give when you're this, when you're like fighting people, you put some boxing gloves and you just fight people all day, right? Or you're just like, oh no, it's mine, it's mine, it's mine. You got boys and you're like, the first words are mine, right? Yeah. So if they say, oh, they're born generous, it's like, no, they're like mine, me, mine. And I'm like, you can't live like that. Generational generosity means I'm gonna open up my hands and say, I have everything I need. I have more than enough, and I'm freely giving it. And that's the way we live our life, and that's what we do it in our house.
Here at Smith Financial Services, we take care of small business owners, 1099 contract workers, and their families. We know insurance can be rough if you're a small business owner, so we are here to make things easy. Visit our website, smithfinancial.services, to learn more.
That's so beautiful, man. And that's, again, your energy and seeing your boys and buying your wife roses on their birthday, man. You're making me look bad here. So I got to step my game up, little mama. She's in the studio, right?
You don't know.
Thanks. Thanks for the grace. Thanks for the grace. Yeah. But, as I see and get to experience, just being in your presence and seeing how the people around you and see that, man, I'm honored to be here and see it because it's cool, because it's like, hey, I want to do this, I want to do that, and this guy's done it for so many people, you know. And
appreciate that.
This right here, bro. I mean, this is you know, this is money. That's a sexy dude.
Hey,
I mean, how did all this? Is this?
You know what, man? This idea, branding beyond business, it came from a place of wrestling over these 20 years. Like everybody, when I talk to people, you know, especially these people that want to become influential and like they're like, I need more followers, I need more of this. To them, it's almost like the people are transactional. You know what I mean? I need more sales, so I need to spend this much money on my ads, but they don't actually care. So like the branding beyond business was like an idea of like beyond a transaction, there's a story. Beyond a transaction, there's a person. So the way you brand, you are a brand. You look at your thumb, take out your thumb. You look at that, 8 billion people on the planet and not one person has that unique thumbprint. You're branded. You're branded and made uniquely designed by God Almighty, who created the universe. Mm-hmm. And branding beyond business, this idea is not just about a strong look or logo or font or, you know, how well you do content and stuff. The beyond section is beyond transactions, right? What's behind that as a person, as a story, right? Once you connect to that and create human to human impact, that's really where it's at for me, you know, and teaching that of like, hey, if you're thinking about just sales, like your money-oriented goals, right? But money's the reward, right? So the more you can love people, the more you can help solve problems, big problems, you know what I mean? The more money you're going to make because it's the reward of solving big problems.
Right.
Right. So all this happened. I mean, like with the graphics, I know you're talking about graphics, all that stuff. Like, you know, so, you know, I've been designing since MySpace days.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like that practice of design, the practice of color theory, the practice of those things, it shows when you see it and you see it done well, you recognize it. Yeah. But when you never seen it before, you're like, oh, this is cool. Some people use, you know, certain things like AI and camera. Yeah. I'm just gonna be honest, AI, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But what I did was
I'm still trying to use Paint.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Tell God. Windows Paint. I did that, bro. I used to make band flyers with Windows Paint.
That's when I quit. When I couldn't figure out how to get the thing erased.
Comic Sans. Like, what are we doing? You know what I mean? That's the only fonts available, bro. Right? I was just like, let's just do it. I don't know, man. Yeah. But then you learn some things and you get to what I love about art and creativity is that art is layers. Art, you know, you take an idea, everything's a remix, and there's a documentary on Vimeo called Everything's a Remix. So everything that you are today has been a remix of things that you've learned over the years. Your parents, you're a remix of both your parents. You know what I mean? So like, there's nothing really truly innovative. It's just inspired by. You know what I mean? So when I take AI and I take things, I don't just take it and just repurpose it. I take it and I say, how can I flip it? I take it, an idea that it might inspire me to create something and build layers and layers and layers of creativity around it. You know what I mean? I think people do this in business. How do I take one concept like Coach Burt? How do I take one concept and sell it 20 times? You know what I mean? It's the layers and that takes creativity. You know what I mean? So like AI may never replace human beings, but you know, because the AI can't replace creativity that way. Right. You know, at least right now. It may in 10 years, but right now we're good. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. But it takes an eye and it takes knowing something to identify the creativity and then building upon that. How can we make it better? How can I change it and revise it? A lot of editors, and I'm gonna speak to some editors. I'm sure you worked with editors in the past. A lot of the creatives I worked with in the past are like level 1 creatives. Like they're very amateur, you know, and I say that in the most loving way because they haven't built the creative muscle yet. And the practice. So like when I was working at the agency, like we were just talking about, I had the clients and I had my executive team say, I need another revision. I need to revise this. I need you to take this small millisecond out because we can't put something in there. You know what I mean? I literally had to go revise on one piece of content, like 24 revisions just on one piece of content. So what did that do for me? It made me numb to the idea of I got to make it better. And my taste isn't your taste, right? So my idea was like, well, who's this for? Right? So that's my very first question when I make content. I'm like, who is this actually for? Because my taste is different than your taste. So if this is for you, let's make it for you. But if this is for your audience, that's probably why it's not converting, because you're focusing on you and not your audience. So you're going to build things where you focus. So if you're not seeing it from your audience perspective of how you can solve their problems, you're actually probably not making content that converts. It's just content and it's noise. You're adding to the thousands and thousands and thousands of pieces of content that they scroll through every 35 seconds. So the idea here is how can you serve your audience better, and how do you make content that stands out, that will grab their attention, but also tie that into converting and giving value, because they had to follow you for a reason.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I hope that was a long tangent from one question, but
No, that's fine, because it really boils down to, because, you know, I've had my Instagram page from back when I was coaching baseball, and I just started transitioning over to this. Well, I was surprised and warned by some of the friends of ours that, hey, you're about to start getting a lot of messages about, hey, can we create this? Can we do that? We have this, we have that. And, you know, thank you in advance. And I'll say it that way, because there was a few people when I told them I was going to be talking to you today, and they haven't bothered me again since then, because I said, hey, I'm going to talk to the man that does the branding. And this is, once I talk to him, then we may see what you got to do, you know? But I mean, it's like, you know, there's so many people out there that say they can do this, but you talk about the conversions and you're like, hey, who is this for? Because I've been guilty of that many times.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to hear me play my guitar and I sing out of tune, and they're like, oh, God love him. My mama says, way to go, son. It's like, yay,
thanks, Mom.
Yay, thanks, Mom.
You're my biggest fan.
Yeah, and she still is.
Yeah.
And now, like, there's 2 or 3 more people that watch the show. But, you know, but brother, it's been phenomenal to sit here and chop it up with you and talk over some things. And I know that you got a team to get back to and wrap up today and everything. But the way that I like to conclude the show is that's your camera right there. And just to share your message, it can be on whatever, however, whatever. Just share a message to the followers that, you know, whatever you feel led to say, brother.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you for that, bro. I feel in my heart. I feel like, you know, the spirit stirring of like, say, like, don't give up. You know, I was in college. I was 19 years old, and I had 2 best friends at the time. One was like in my band, and one was in my film kind of like production thing. And they had told me, they're like, you know, your stuff isn't really that great. You should probably quit. This probably isn't for you. And I was like heartbroken. You know what I mean? Because I wanted to pursue this as a career. And I'm just going to be honest with you. My stuff was shit. Like, it didn't look good. Right? Sorry, family-friendly podcast. It didn't look that great. But then I had a voice inside of me. And I believe it was the Holy Spirit. And it was like, hey, you might not be good today, but tomorrow you'll be better than today. You could learn something within 24 hours that might actually change the game. So just keep on pursuing what you feel like you're designed for, and don't get upset when God gave you a vision that other people can't handle. You know what I mean? So like, if God gave you a vision that vision wasn't for somebody else. So don't get upset when they come to you and say like, hey, I don't want anything to do with you, or like, hey, you should probably stop doing that. I had the closest people in my life tell me that this is probably not going to make you a lot of money. They probably told me that, you know, your stuff isn't the best compared to the best. You know what I mean? And I had to check my ego, and I had to say, you know what? I'm not the best today, but I'm going to be my best tomorrow. And that, I just played that over and over in my mind for 5 to 10 years. And I just got better and better and better. Not only did I work with incredible celebrities, I worked on incredible brands. I would not have been able to do that if I believed that lie of maybe I'm not cut out to do this. So whatever voice you hear today, whether it's in business, whether it's insurance, whether it's real estate, whether, you know, like, is this worth it? Is the effort that I've been putting in, is the investment that I've been putting in for years, is the outcome match the worth of me putting in my time? I want to tell you, absolutely. And don't you ever give up. don't you ever feel like it's not worth it? Because number one, you got to ask yourself, what was I designed to do? What does God have me on this planet for? And if you can have the conviction to believe that with your whole heart, then why would you stop pursuing greatness? Why would you stop pursuing what you feel like you've been designed to do on this planet? Because even though today might look bleak, tomorrow is a new morning, and the sun's going to come out, and tomorrow is going to be a new day. If you just keep on doing the thing, and this is what I see a lot of business people do, is that they just give up right before something happens. So this is the part in your story where most people will give up. Do you have the resilience and conviction to say, I'm going to figure it out, I'm going to do it, I'm going to keep on pushing, and it's going to be worth it? Because if I do this over and over for the next 100 days. And this is what I tell people about content, by the way. I'm like, hey, we did 10 videos and you're going to give up. As a coach, I'm looking for 100 reps, baby. Give me 100 videos and then tell me if you want to give up. Do you think if you had 100 videos talking about what you're passionate about, how you help people, how you help solve problems, stories, do you think after 100 videos you won't get one conversion? One person saying, I'm a big fan. One person saying, I want to work with you. Right? No, but put your reps in.
Right.
That's it.
Oh, great show, brother. Great show.
Let's go.
And thank you for watching Podcast on Wheels.